All right, guys. So on this set of notes, um, like I said earlier, this is where you're gonna solve a problem, and then you're gonna know, okay, hey, I'm basically this is when you can tell yourself that you're done. You've done everything you can. So when you're looking for your final answers to these, I'll give you a hint. Sometimes when you're working these, you might, and you'll hear this when I get back. Sometimes when you're working these, I'll say, "Oh, you got a good answer, but I'm looking for a great answer." Well, those great answers are those simplified fractions. They are down as low as they can go. And so these are 5 ways to know if a fraction is in simplest form. And so if it's in simplest form, you know, hey, I'm done. I don't have anything else to do. And so let's look at question number 1. I would try to find a spot somewhere on your page to write a couple more of these examples as we go through it. So question number 1, or excuse me, not question number 1, but way number 1, it says the numerator and denominator are in counting order, like 7/8. That's what that is there on the side. So I'm going to write it more like a fraction. So like 7/8. That's one way to know that you are done and you have a simplified fraction. You might hear me call it consecutive order. Consecutive order means, again, like you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, well, in consecutive order means like a back-to-back number. So if I were you, I would write some more examples of this. So consecutive order fractions could be something like 2/3, or 5/6, or 9/10. I mean, we can sit here and write them all day if we wanted to, but just write a few more just to kind of solidify that in your mind. Okay, hey, if you get a fraction like this and you are simplifying and you get this as a final answer, you know you can just shut it down. Boom, I'm done. Okay, so that's one of the ways. The second way, it says there is a 1 in the numerator. All right, go ahead and write this on your page as well. This is what's known as a unit fraction. So a unit fraction is a fraction that has 1 as the numerator. And we're gonna do a lot with unit fractions later on this year, so you'll remember that, and you'll remember us talking about it, and hopefully it will make sense then when we get to it. But unit fractions just have 1, so like 1/2. 1/2 is a unit fraction. 1/10th is a unit fraction. 1/20th could be a unit fraction. Again, we could sit here and write them for days, but there's really no reason for that. Just write a few more. So, second way, if a fraction has a 1 in the numerator or it's a unit fraction, you know it's done. Third way, both the numerator and denominator are prime numbers. So this is another reason why we need to know some primes. So if you have a fraction like 5/7, you know that it is already simplified. You cannot get those numbers down any lower by dividing. Or let's say you have a fraction 2/11. 2/11 would be an example because both 2 and 11 are prime numbers. We'll do one more. Maybe you have 3/17. 3/17, both would be prime. And so you can't do anything with 3/17. So again, a lot of things that we've been learning here lately are kind of coming back into play. So prime and composite numbers could show up with fractions as well. All right, look at way number 4. The numerator is is a prime number, and it doesn't evenly divide into the denominator. So these are a little bit tricky because now you got to really kind of stop and think. Well, look at the one that they gave you, 7/15. Well, 7 is prime, but 7 can't go into 15, so it falls under that category. So numerator's prime, and it can't evenly go into the denominator. All right, let's see if we can't find another one. Let's do 5/16. Okay, 5 is prime. Can 5 go into 16? No, 5 can't go into 16, so that falls under that category. Let's do one more. Let's do 3/20. That could be one. I'm trying to think of some as we go here. All right, 3 is prime. It can't go into 20, so 3/20 could be another example of that. Okay, the last one is an example where if you are, you're working these problems out and you're one of those kids that is really relying on GCF, which you should be, because that's something that's going to come into play when you solve these problems. If you ever, let's say you take like 4/15 and you go out and you do some factoring and you find that, okay, after I factor and I take some time to do this work off to the side, if you find that, hey, well, you know what, my GCF here is going to equal 1, if that's what you find, and you discover that nothing else will go in except 1, then you also can tell that that is a simplified fraction. It cannot go any lower. In other words, it's basically, it's in the simplest form. And so 4/15 is an example of that one. And since I showed a little bit more on that one, I'm going to leave that one alone. I'm not going to do another example. But these 5 ways, these are very important, and we're going to talk about these quite a bit over the next couple weeks going into our Christmas break, and we'll continue them after our Christmas break as well. So be very, very careful on these. You need to it's almost kind of like you need to start memorizing those. And I'm not saying take them home and study them or anything like that, but in class, when you get an answer and you kind of think, well, am I done? Do I need to simplify it even more? Well, this is how you can tell, well, hey, I'm done, because it's in the simplest form because of one of these 5 ways. And so we're going to work on that with some of our examples. All right, so the next part is going to be giving some examples on an activity that you're going to be working on today.